This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming the multi-talented Tony Award winning Paul Kreppel. And Paul not only was Sonny on the classic TV sitcom It's a Living, which lasted from 1980 to 1989. There was a couple years where it wasn't going because it went from ABC to syndication. He was also a member of The Proposition, the classic sketch comedy group with Jane Curtin and Fred Grandy and past guest Judy Kahn and all of them. And he also was in a production of Godspell in New York. He guest starred on everything from Laverne and Shirley to Fantasy Island, Love Boat, Remington Steele, Doogie Howser, My Two Dads, and like I said, he won the Tony Award for Jay Johnson, The Two and Only. And it's going to be a great talk today. I cannot wait. He's a guy I've been wanting to talk to forever, and it's going to be just so awesome. And he started following me on Instagram like a month or so ago, and so I reached out to him, and here we are about to begin. So yeah, here is my interview with Paul Kreppel. So going back in time, did you gravitate toward acting early on in your childhood?
I did. I don't know if it was acting, but I was performing and singing, and yeah, there's a picture of me. I don't know how old I was, but I'm at a mic stand performing, and I think it was in a large place. Um, and my head, my mouth at the mic stand at its lowest position, I think it was slightly above eye level to where the mic was. So yeah, there was always something there, always musical, and
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, at my earliest ages, I guess, I ended up in a dance class because I I have a bum wheel. I have a bum ankle,
Yeah.
and the doctor said, "Well, put him in a dance class. It'll be good for his balance." And very much like in a chorus line, Mike's character, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the season, I was in every number and having solo lines. I think I was probably 5. And I think that's when I fell in love with enjoy. I just enjoyed performing.
Nice.
So it was at a very early age. And I continued doing it, but it wasn't really about acting. It was just about performing. My folks were wonderful people, very supportive, but they weren't theater people, and they didn't go to a lot of theater. And in a little town, Kingston, New York, the only theater really, there was a local community theater, but we didn't. We got some touring shows, but nothing that kids would be involved in. So I didn't see a lot of theater when I was growing up, but I was always jumping around and singing and dancing.
Yeah, so did you immediately
that's the short answer.
Did you immediately get involved in school plays and community theater and all that?
I didn't take part in that community theater ever, but I was always in whatever plays or variety events that were going on. I was fascinated by clowning.
Mm-hmm.
The show Circus Boy, this is how old I am, was on television, and that was Mickey Dolenz, who was one of the monkeys.
Yep.
He was the star of that, playing a kid who I think basically, I forgot if he grew up in the circus or he ran away to the circus. But I loved that show, and I started practiced juggling on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I destroyed many oranges trying to juggle them before I finally got 3 rubber balls, and kind of taught myself how to juggle, and would watch the Mickey Mouse Club, the original Mickey Mouse Club, and
love it.
Knew every line of every song and every step because they repeated the same things over and over again. So it was always something that I did. Yeah.
Love it.
And did clown throughout school. In I don't remember if it was during middle school or even high school, but the high school would send me to elementary schools to promote the Winter Carnival, which was a big event, big fundraising event with booths. And I'd go with a guitar and put on some clown makeup and perform for them. Yeah. And always worked with kids too. That was something that I always continued to do throughout my career and still work with. Well, the kids are now in their 20s, but occasionally I work with younger kids.
Really? Because they always say, don't work with kids and don't work with animals.
Yeah, well, and I love them both. So you can say that, but I enjoy the I enjoy the improvisational spontaneity of doing both of those things. So
That's good.
they do say that, but I never said that. So it's not my quote.
Yeah.
So here I am, just near Times Square, getting back into being here. Have a whole bunch of new shows I want to see, some friends that are in shows that I want to support, and working on a few projects.
Nice.
So that's my life these days.
So you attended Emerson College, and and two of your classmates were Henry Winkler and Andrea Martin.
Yes, and I still speak to them and see them occasionally. Henry and I maintained a relationship when I first went to Los Angeles. He could not have been more supportive of me. I mean, if he had a gathering, I was invited to every party he had. When I first got there, Stacy, his wife, they'd invite me for dinner and then give me a care package to take home. Invite and made sure I met the casting people over at Paramount. A good man, and we do stay in touch. I mean, I don't call him every day, but we had lunch not too long ago, right around the time his book came out, and he was just very excited about everything that was going on in his career. That that he did have another leap into winning Emmys and the wonderful work that he did on Barry. He's a good man. He's just really a good man. I don't know anybody that has a bad word to say about Henry. And Andrea and I, yes, we go back to school, and then we were friends after that. And I run into her in New York, and she's also a Godspell. We have a Godspell connection, and the Godspell family is always supportive of one another.
Yeah.
And she did the famous Toronto company, which the original Toronto company is kind of legendary. And I think actually Judd Apatow is doing a documentary about the original Godspell.
I hope so.
Toronto company, because they were all kids. They were all starting out on their career. And it was Eugene Levy and
John Candy,
Victor
Paul
Garber
Schaefer,
and Gilda Radner,
Martin
and
Short.
Andrea Martin Short, and Paul Schaefer was the musical director. Yeah. And he got the job because he was playing auditions. I think he said for like $25 a pop. And Schwartz was there for the auditions, and he said, "Hey, who are you? How would you like to be the musical director of the show?"
Yeah.
And then he came down to New York, and he worked on the movie of Godspell, and then he was a musical director or an associate musical director. I'm not sure exactly, or he played keyboards on another show that Schwartz wrote called The Magic Show. And just, he's pretty marvelous. I get to see him quite a bit. We worked on a few things together honoring Stephen Schwartz. And I just love any time I get to spend with Schaefer.
Nice. So how do you come to join the proposition?
Right, and that predated Godspell. That was while I was still in Boston. I went to Emerson for a year, left for a year, went for a year, left. They didn't really want me. Actually, the teachers wanted me, but since I never went to class, I was not ready for an academic career. But I loved the people, and I'm still in touch with them, and I'm proud to say that I'm an honored alum at this point. But when I left, because I kind of was interested, like I said, I always worked with kids. They had a children's theater department, so I was playing in a rock and roll band until 2 and 3 in the morning. And then I'd get up on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. I forgot what day we did it, probably Saturday, at like 5:30, pack up a truck and go to some school with a bunch of kids and put on, a children's show, because that's what I was doing there. I did, and then I got involved with independent people, but not the main stage productions for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up being in the Charles Playhouse at the time, had its own resident company, children's theater company, and we did some cute shows.
Yeah.
And two of the people in it said, "We're in this improv group, and you should audition." And I said, "Okay." So I went over, and I ended up doing the proposition, and brought it to New York, and we created after I got there. I think not only because of me, there were a couple of other people there. The proposition had come out of Harvard.
Right.
It was a Harvard review, and it was very smart. And and they would write the material for the most part. And when I was coming in, they had a new director, and they went to a completely improvised a template where they would create certain kinds of things, like a musical. We did a lot of music stuff, and an opera, and a music festival. And then they also would do a talk show, and they would do a gibberish, a foreign language, movies. And so, and actually pick playwrights, and then they would act it out in the style of the playwrights. And it terrified me when I first saw it. It's like, how do you get up there and do this every day and not just fall on your face? But it ended up being an amazing experience, and it was really where I learned an awful lot, because I also loved the people that were there. The musical directors that were there were initially were still Harvard students who I felt like I got some kind of a degree from Harvard just because of the people that I was hanging out with at the time.
Yeah,
Then a year and a half later, after doing it up in Boston and becoming really very well known and respected and playing all kinds of amazing venues there, we had our own theater. But one New Year's, we opened for the Grateful Dead at the big rock club up there called the Boston Tea Party.
Nice.
And just kinds of things like that. And then we came down to New York, and the show ran for quite a while. I did it for a year in New York, and one of the people who had already left the proposition said she was doing Godspell, which opened around the same time we did, and she said, "You should audition for this." That's how driven I am. I sit around waiting for somebody to tell me that I should audition for something. And I auditioned for Godspell, and then I did that for 2 years and directed a couple of companies after it.
I've talked to Judy Kahn and Melanie Chardoff. Did you work with them in the proposition?
I worked with Judy Kahn in the proposition, and she's the one who was doing Godspell for a very short time, who told me I should get my butt over there because they were starting to put more companies together. And so she was the one. Yeah, I love Judy. So she's talented.
Great lady.
Los Angeles. Wrote pilots and was on Mary Hartman and Fernwood. Yeah, I adore her. And she doesn't live close enough for us to be in touch as much as I would like. Yeah. But I give her a holler on her birthday every year, and I adore her. And Melanie did the proposition. Yeah. And then we stayed friends. When I first came down to New York, we spent time together, and then we did a show called Tuscaloosa's Calling Me, but I'm Not Going. And she was standing by it was a 3-person review with a woman named Patty Perkins, who was just amazing in it. And then Chip Zion took over a role. And he said, "I'm doing the show, and they're looking for somebody to stand by for the men." And it was right after I did Godspell. And I needed a break from taking pratfalls and screaming and hollering because I did a lot of voices. And I ended up doing that and then taking over that other role. So the 3 of us did it. And then Melanie showed up as the understudy, and she would go on. And then Murphy Cross, who is my partner, she came in, and she was the understudy. Nice. And when I took it over, the understudy for the men was a man named Jerry Zaks, who was acting at the time and is now one of Broadway's, he's still doing it. He's a director. He's directed so many different things. He did a revival of How to Succeed in Business. He's a wonderful director, and he's a good man.
Yeah. It's like that time, the comedy in sketch was getting to be so irreverent. It was during the Vietnam era. Everyone was pushing the envelope. You had guys like the committee, Second City, Fireside Theater. Everybody was was just, saying fuck you to the establishment. I mean, did you guys know that you were in the middle of a revolution?
Yeah. In Boston,
Yeah.
to be in Boston in that summer. Yeah, I think that I forgot if it was Veterans of Foreign War or something. There was a parade that was a fairly conservative parade, and all of the. I never thought of myself as a hippie, but we all dressed the same. Whether a freak. I like the expression freak.
Yeah.
We were showing up and giving flowers to the people that were on the floats, the veterans. And at first they thought that they were drugs or something. I just remember that. And we would have big gatherings, in the Boston Common. We'd pack that place to protest the war. I mean, it was the time of hair, which was really, that was the undercurrent of that show, or a show that
Yeah.
I'm very close to all the people that got to do it. And because of the proposition, I never did get to do it. But, that was my path.
Yeah.
But yes, it was. And then we did know. It was a musical revolution. And we understood what was going on in Vietnam, and that we exercised our power, and that we felt that we were the future. I didn't like all of it. I never liked don't trust anybody over 30. I thought, well, we're going to be 30 pretty soon. I don't know if that's a good slogan. So, but no, we were pretty much, there was a lot going on then. And the proposition didn't delve into it too much. I was quoted in one of the reviews saying something that was a little political, because I was asking, it was somebody was doing a survey and asking people on the street questions. And I said something that was kind of against the war, or I made a point.
Yeah.
And it ended up being in one of the reviews. But at the time, everybody was doing it. It certainly wasn't the atmosphere that we're seeing now, where people are thinking twice before they say anything.
Yeah.
And we're not sure where we're headed.
No.
I think we're in the middle of some kind of a revolution right now. And I don't like using that word particularly, but
yeah.
We're going to get serious here?
No, it's okay. It's okay. So you got to audition for Saturday Night Live.
I did. How do you know that? Did I say that somewhere?
Yeah, you did on Ian's podcast.
When they first put it together, I had no idea what the show was going to be like. It certainly would have changed my audition. But the people from the proposition, I think we were all brought in. They pretty much had the guys. They were looking for one or two women, and Jane Curtin, who was in the proposition, who I adore. Again, I got to see her, visit her up in her home not that long ago, and she was the one from the proposition who ended up being on Saturday Night Live in the original cast. But yeah, I didn't know. I was the person who bounced around and rolled around on the floor. I don't think that what I was doing for my audition was necessarily what they were looking for.
Yeah, I think
it was fun.
I think
I've become close to a lot of different people who've been involved in the show, and Schaefer ended up doing that. That was actually It was 4 years after I had stopped being in the proposition. I had already done Godspell by that point for 2 years, or almost 2 years, when they had the auditions.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know if you saw them.
What a phenomenon!
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the movie, but I think you dodged a bullet that night.
I have not seen it, and I do want to see it.
And
it's a movie. It's a movie. I will enjoy it. I never look at a movie and think of it as, well, that didn't happen. No, it's not a documentary. It's a movie. It's a dramatization. I know that things have been exaggerated, but I think that they kind of nailed who the people were to a certain degree. Maybe they dramatized things a little differently. I have no reference because I haven't seen it yet, and I want to, and I don't know why I haven't. So they did have somebody playing Schaefer, I think.
Yeah.
And Jane. The little clips I saw, I thought that they picked decent people. But
yeah.
Yeah.
They got
I saw a
somebody.
trailer, and that's about it.
They got somebody playing Billy Crystal, and yeah, a lot of them. It's pretty cool. I haven't seen it yet, but I will. Would
But you
you?
know, there was another show going on at the time that Howard Cosell was going to do on. It was going to be a network show during network hours,
Mhm.
and Jane was offered both. And
Yeah,
it was Howard Cosell was going to be like the new Ed Sullivan, and he was going to have a crew of improv people who would come in and do sketches, and then he would have other performers come in, and that was for the network, and probably was going to pay more money. And Lorne Michaels had already done some Lily Tomlin specials,
yeah,
and some of the people in our show kind of became friendly with Lily. Judy was on one of her specials, and she
right.
liked Jane, and we knew that work was kind of interesting. So that's why Jane chose Saturday Night Live over that other show, which I don't know, what did it last, five episodes or something.
Yeah,
So sometimes it's a flip of a coin, sometimes it's just luck, sometimes it's making the right choice for the right reason.
right. When you were in Godspell, did you guys have a friendly rivalry with Jesus Christ Superstar?
I don't think there was any rivalry. So the shows are so different.
Yeah,
Uh, the shows are so different. Some people ended up doing both.
yeah,
Not too many, because well, just a different tone. Our show was, I hate to call it a clown show, but it had a whimsical, naive quality to it.
yeah.
And Jesus Christ Superstar, uh, the main quality you needed to have to be in the show, you needed to be a singer who also could
Mm-hmm.
dance. And our show was a personality show. Godspell was a personality show. It's you played yourself. You exposed more, a larger version of yourself. Your name was in the program unless you were playing Jesus or the Judas John the Baptist character. Everybody else, I played Paul. Everybody else was playing, something. And that's why the show is done as many times as it's done, especially with younger performers. I mean, if you're in high school and you're in college, there's only a few roles that are written for your age.
Mm-hmm.
There are more now, actually. I think there's a nice revolution of theater, or evolution of theater, where there's I have a friend who wrote a show right now that I think it's about the last gathering of a few women in their college, preparing maybe for finals. I'm seeing it next week. It's called All Nighter, and she's got a lot of her high school friends are actually going to be in it, and so there is stuff going on now. But I think that Godspell was one of those things where you could do it when you're 80, and it's just going to be different jokes, because you would add your own social contemporary humor to it. We always had a lightsaber. There was always a Star Wars joke because it was something that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't think there was a friendly rivalry. Yeah, I never thought about it.
Yeah,
because of that. They were two shows with similar theme, and they both get shown on Easter on different channels.
Yeah.
Actually, the mother of my children was in the movie of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah, because I talked to Ted Neely, and I don't care how old that guy gets, he is Jesus Christ.
Oh, no, he's the best.
I mean,
he
he's
is
fantastic. And like,
yeah. Go ahead.
Well, he said that
No, I
whenever.
was going to say, if you saw him after the show, if you went and saw him in the show, which I did, he would give you a hug, and you would swear that, there was an energy coming through him that actually made you shiver.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, am I healed? What happened? What did I do?
Exactly.
What was that? Yeah, and his voice. Oh my God. He still sings it. He knows. He's careful because God knows he's 80.
Yeah.
He's over 80, I think.
Yeah, early
but
80s.
He always just, to me, I've been in a room with him when he would sing Gethsemane, and it's like you don't follow it.
Yeah, because he said you guys would be, in the opposite theaters, like whatever town you guys were in. He said you'd see Godspell.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wonder if he ever saw the show.
I don't know, probably. Or
I
maybe,
don't know. He was too busy. When you're working, you don't get to see the shows. When
yeah.
you're working, you're all on the same schedule, and so you don't get to see the shows. And for actors, when you're not working, sometimes you just can't afford to go see the shows unless somebody has a way to get you in. That's the
Mhm.
strange part of that. All of that, you're always just looking for the next job. It doesn't matter really who you are when you're in the theater. That's the way that works.
So I'm a,
But I think that the people that start, when you start in the theater, you just always are drawn back to being a part of it.
mhm.
I think I know that I am. I know that most of the people that I know are,
Mhm.
and that's why you're doing it. There are a lot of kids that just need to go to Hollywood because that's what they want, and some
Yeah.
of them are deserving. Some of them are wonderful and talented, and the training these days is so much better than it was
Yeah.
in terms of it being a profession. When I
Mhm.
was in school, there were no musical theater programs in the country.
Mhm.
There was not a degree yet for musical theater. It
Right.
happened, I think, around the same time I was in school. But so now every school has one.
Right.
It's a bit of a cash cow, I think, for them. But at the time, they never talked about the business. This is all about art, being theater and film. And I think the week that everybody graduated, somebody said, "Oh, and you'll need to get headshots and put a resume together." There was nothing about the business that was ever discussed,
Yeah.
and that's all gone.
I know. They also teach on camera acting classes too, which they didn't have back in the day.
Yeah, they didn't do that then. They did
Yeah.
not do that. We had a little TV section, but it was mainly to become producers. I did some of it. I tried to do a little movie while I was there. Um, but now, when I work with kids, and when I was on tour with Wicked, one of the young ladies who went to Northwestern, she would just all of a sudden post, "All right, between shows on next Sunday, um, we're going to do an on-camera workshop." I
Mhm.
went, "Really? Oh, good for you. Can I come by and see?" She said, "No, I don't want you to come yet," because she knew that I directed some TV. She said, "No, you can't come yet. When they do, we've done it a few times." And when I finally went there, I was amazed at how much she knew
Yeah.
about just giving people an understanding of what you need to understand when you're in front of the camera. And again, she's one of the people I'm still in touch with. But it's done in such a more guided professional way. It's not just about it's combining all of those things because you need to have expertise in all of that. My favorite actors aren't in the business,
Mhm.
because you need to understand the pitfalls of being in the business, the ups and downs, the insecurity. You need to develop everything that you love to do because there will be times when you may need to do other things. And that was never discussed. And now it is. The kids talk about that.
Right.
I worked on something on Broadway. As soon as the show closed, people went back to the other job. They didn't say, "Oh, now I'm doing this. I never need to." They did the other things that they did to make sure that they had a life. And I was surprised by it at first, but then I admired the fact that they understood that
Mhm.
and persevered.
So I'm a huge Laverne and Shirley fan, and I love that Beatnik episode. Tell me your memories of doing that.
Oh, that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one. God bless those two ladies. It was at a point in the show of the show when they were not really communicating
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and so I barely had any communication with them for the week, and it was one
Mhm.
of the first things I did there. And it didn't seem like everybody was real happy on the set. I called my agent. I
Yeah.
said, "If this is what it's going to be like out here, I think I'm going back to New York." And he said, "Just get through it," and I did. And it turned out that Art Garfunkel, I think, was a very dear friend of Penny's at the time, and
Yes.
so he showed up and guested on the show.
Yeah.
And then in the audience, Carol Kane,
Yeah.
because it was Penny's birthday. Carol Kane and was it John Hurd and Terry Garr all were beatniks in that scene. They're all sitting at a table dressed like beatniks.
Yeah, because
once they were on this.
Oh, because they mentioned on IMDb that Carol Kane's in the crowd, but they don't mention the other two. That's wild.
Yeah, and once they got in front of a camera, Penny and Cindy were magic. I mean, their spontaneity, their
Lucy and Ethel.
Their timing. Yeah, they were. Well, it was almost Lucy and Lucy.
Yeah,
and nothing against Ethel, but they both were so accomplished and playful and just were magic together.
Yeah.
And so once the cameras were rolling, I was real appreciative of them. I think Joel Grey. I think Joel Zwick directed that show.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, who then did a season of It's a Living. But I was a fan of both. And then I see them years later, and they're, oh my God, yes, oh of course. but when I first walked in, it was like a chill in the room.
Yeah.
And that happens. I think the show had been on for 3 years. They were like renegotiating, and there was a little head-to-head going on. That's not uncommon. And I don't usually talk about that stuff. But God bless them.
So
the show was fun. I always thought that the show was fun. They pulled that off. They pulled off a pretty farcical event because they surrounded themselves with the right people.
Right.
Michael McKean, who does not stop working and is doing a Broadway show right now, I think, or an off-Broadway show. I forget which because I'm just back in town. And he's just such a wonderful actor. And when he and David Lander, may he rest in peace, would play together because they knew each other, and those characters, I think, were already part of their stable of characters. They were just amazing too. So they had all of this wonderful silliness going on with people who knew how to do it and did it with heart and humor and a twinkle in their eye.
Absolutely. And I grew up watching It's a Living when it was in syndication. I've always loved that show. And based on what I heard you say in the previous interview with Ian, you had like a 6-episode arc that turned into a permanent job.
Well, it was going to be 6 out of the 13. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They didn't know how much because the character was thrown into the show at the very last minute. Stu Silver added the character, and I think I'm the only person that went to the network for it. And it was heaven. The producer said it was sitcom heaven because we all loved playing together. Everybody there they were theater people. Marion Mercer, just the most magical, unique.
She was fantastic.
Stage actress, a Tony Award winner for Promises back in the day, and she was magic, and she was flawless. There was nothing you said. When I directed an episode, and I came out to give notes to everybody, and I went around to each person, and I gave them a little something, a little tweak, a little something. And I looked at Marion, and I said, "Marion, nice dress," and that was all I said to her. Yeah, we had a good time. For the most part, we always had a good time, and we were all supportive. And I'm still in touch with Gail Edwards. I just 2 weeks ago ran into Ann Gillian for the first time. Anytime I see Cheryl Lee, because we actually have a couple of other connections. Sometimes no matter what you go through, when you see somebody a few years later in retrospect, there's just kind of only kindness and just a little something special because of the time that you have. And that was a show that we had a lot of fun doing. And we got to do these little musical numbers all the time that they kept writing for us.
One of my favorite episodes was the prom episode where you guys are doing Dancing in the Street. Yeah.
Barry always said she couldn't sing. So she didn't want to have any lines. So she just got one line. She had to yell out, "Philadelphia, PA." That was all she did.
That's great.
For the rest of her life. And we'd bring it up and she would just say, "Yeah, Philadelphia, PA." That was all I would do.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite episodes?
You know, there were, there were 120.
Hmm.
And so there were a lot of them for many different reasons uh, that I enjoyed doing. And I also ended up having a lot of friends on the show.
Hmm.
I found myself in a position of, we'd always read a script ahead,
Hmm.
or 1 week ahead, which was a luxury. The writers had a script for the next week. So on the first day of each week when we would shoot, because that's how long you have to shoot, like Monday through Friday,
Yeah.
or Wednesday through next Tuesday. We would sit down and we would read the script that we weren't doing, so they could go and punch it up after they heard it. And the casting director and I were always friends, and I would just go to her and go, I guess, can you see somebody? And they were all good people. I wasn't, trying to just get my friends work. I said, I know a couple of people who I think would be wonderful, and they'd always be supportive, and they'd be a great person to have here. And she ended up bringing most of those people in. So it was always fun to have friends
Hmm.
and to be in a position to be able to help other people out. And some of them, it was, I don't know if it was some of them it was a first job. Some of them it was, just they were already established, but it didn't matter. It was a nice thing that was the way the show was. We were there to make a good show.
Right.
We pretty much didn't have too much ego going on at all for the 120 episodes.
That's awesome.
You do 120 episodes. Some episodes are going to be written better, and so there are different things that happen. They're not all gems. They're not all perfect, but we had a great time. We did. We had a great time.
Yeah, you guys
I
did.
sure did. They would just give me a song,
Yeah.
and I could do whatever I wanted. And they would be excited to come down and see what I had created.
Yeah.
Because they'd give me a song, and I'd go to the prop guy and I said, "All right, get me a clown nose, a gong, and a squirt gun." And they usually bought it. I don't remember anything that they said, "No, no, you cannot, you can't do that. That doesn't work."
Yeah.
So it was like doing my own little variety show, surrounded by these wonderful, funny, beautiful, smart. It was a good family, good people from every season. And then they kept changing some of the characters. The network would chime in about something or other.
Yeah.
The original company had Wendy Shaw,
Yep.
who did a lot of voices.
Burt
and did some movies
Remsen.
after that. And who?
Burt Remsen.
Burt Remsen, lovely, lovely man, lovely man. I don't. He did some things after it. It may have been one of the last few things that he did. And Susan Sullivan was in the first year, and it was a love fest. It really was a love fest. We had fun. And then the second year, it changed. And then that's when Louise Lasser came in, and it was like, okay, I'm not sure this is how this is going to work.
Yeah.
But she's so unique that when you watch the episodes, it's like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. I'm friends.
Then we went into. Then we had 3 years off because the show was canceled.
Yeah.
They couldn't understand why we weren't beating Magnum PI in the ratings. I mean, he became just this phenomenon, and so you have to say, no, our show is still good. You're not going. Nothing you put here is going to beat him right now because he's this big handsome guy doing a show that people want to see. Because that was our competition from the beginning. Then we went 4 years in syndication, where we didn't have an audience, and now we have. Anne was there for the first year, and that's when Crystal Bernard came in.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was always a joy. I haven't seen Crystal in forever, and I would love to see her.
I'm friends with.
Like I said, I just saw Anne Gillian for the first time in years.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, and it was just so nice to be able to spend a minute with her.
I'm friends with Burt Remsen's daughter, Carrie, and she told me he loved the cast, but he hated the experience of going to work on a series every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they treated him well.
Okay.
I don't think that I don't think it was pleasant, but we were always supportive of him. And yeah, I don't want to tell tales.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the deal was, but
Mhm.
he could not have been a more lovely man who had a wonderful career. And his wife was a lovely lady. I never knew his daughter, but please tell her that
Absolutely.
I loved her dad.
I will. I will. Do you remember Lance Lyon, the stage manager?
Of course.
Yes, his wife Stephanie Hodge is a dear friend, and she says that Lance says hi.
Ah, big, tall, handsome Lance.
Yeah,
And he was a baby at the time. Yeah. Oh, please tell him I said hello.
I will.
Yeah, tell her to say hi.
I
Yeah,
will.
just hearing all of the names is great. Yeah, it's let's see what year we did the pilot in 1980. So
Hmm.
that shows you how many years ago. 45 years ago we did the pilot.
How was guest starring on?
Absolutely.
How was guest starring on Remington Steele?
I hadn't done that many one camera things,
Hmm.
and I'm not sure I'm crazy about my performance on it, but I loved being there. Had a great director who had did one of my favorite films, and I'm going blank on everything right now.
Uh,
I really loved Stephanie. I didn't get to spend too much time with either of Stephanie or Bronson, but it was a very friendly set, and and wonderful stage actress Faith Prince. I think it
hmm.
was her first job, and she played my wife on it. And Gwen, what's Gwen's last name? There are too many Gwens going through my mind.
Gwen.
She's married to Ian McShane,
Oh, I know
and
who you're
she
talking
she
about.
played the girl who I was having an affair with. Those shows are always fun.
Faith Prince
But
was on the show.
who was Faith
Faith
Prince?
Faith Prince. Yeah.
Yeah, she won. Did she win a Tony? I think for Guys and Dolls, maybe.
Yes.
And we also had a connection because she had done Jerome Robbins Broadway, and then I ended up getting to do that. And I run into her every once in a while, and yeah, she's a good lady. I do this because I love hanging out with the people. I
Hmm.
love being around that energy and the talented people that are there, and to be supportive of people who are starting out. I mean, just I have all kinds of stories that I don't like to tell
Right.
about just like somebody having a hard time with direction that they're getting. And I will try and help them walk through it so that they could just not be in tears because of the way people have been talking to them. Because sometimes it was on a commercial. There was one commercial where the person I was working with,
Hmm.
we were supposed to say that something tasted good. I don't think that she had ever done a commercial before. And every time she would take the taste of it, she shook her head and said, "It's delicious." But she shook her head back and forth like no.
Hmm.
And the people from the product said she can't shake her head no. But she was she was tasting the food. And sometimes when you taste your food, you're not shaking your head up and down. It's
Yeah.
like ooh, ooh, and her head was going back and forth, side to side. And they went, "You can't shake your head no." And she said, "I didn't shake my head." And I went, "No, yeah, your head is shaking. No, don't do that." She was almost in tears, and I said, "It's a commercial. Just do
Wow.
what they want you to do. Don't shake your head at all. Just say how delicious the food is."
How about Night Court?
Night Court was always fun. I already knew Harry, and I knew the director. Um, there was another scene. They just ran out of time, and Jeff Melman, who
Melman.
directed it, called me up to say, the main scene isn't going to be in the show. We were long, and we didn't need it because it wasn't about the main plot. That was a very sweet thing to do. Thank you. So I'm in the cold open of the show. Uh, but yeah, I think I had some friends who were writers. By then, I had been around for a little while,
Hmm.
so it was always fun. And Harry, I remained a friend of Harry's over the years, Harry Anderson,
Yeah.
and I'm still in touch with his son, who I see occasionally, Dash, and his daughter, Eva. So it it was great. There was nothing wrong with any of those shows. Doing a sitcom is just like summer stock. You come in,
Hmm.
you work on something, you put it up, and then you move to the next show.
Right.
And when you have the right people, those were all very good experiences. There were a couple where somebody's ego was out of control, and then everybody's walking on eggs, and nobody knows what to do about it. That happens a lot out there. I think it happens a lot when they give, and I hate to generalize. It's not the case all the time, but sometimes they'll give a stand-up, a show, and name it after them.
Oh yeah.
And they're not really actors.
Yep.
They, you pitched the show to them. In their mind, they wrote a script, but they didn't write the script necessarily. And then they come in and they read the script, and it's not what they imagined, and they don't know what, their head explodes. And if the show is named after them, it's their life. This is a life and death situation for them. And if the show is good, it's sometimes going to be hell while the show is on, or the show, you're almost better off if the show isn't good, and then you can just let it go. And I think that's happened more than on one occasion. I actually had a whole thing that I wrote about that, the psychology of how to handle a stand-up. There's a reason they work alone.
Yep. I did stand up for 10 years, I know.
No, and I'll say this to a stand-up, and they'll laugh when I say that line.
Yeah.
There's a reason they work alone. Are there exceptions? You bet there are. Ray Romano is a wonderful actor. Paul Reiser is a wonderful actor. There are many. Kevin
Hart.
It was on. No, Kevin
Nealon.
Well, Kevin Nealon is fun, but no, he was on Maisel.
Kevin Pollak.
Thank you, Kevin Pollak. He's done some wonderful work as an actor. But not all of them are, and then they're just given a show. And the best thing that can happen is they surround them with wonderful actors, and then they learn and they get better. And I think that was the case with Seinfeld, Jerry, when he first started doing the show. They surrounded him with these wonderful, wacky people, and he would be there. And he's so adorable and he's so charming, it didn't matter. And at the beginning, he'd always do a routine. Remember, the show would either start or end with him doing a routine about what they had been talking about in the show. That was the original premise. And he was a great stand-up. But he would also, at first, if you go and watch the shows, every time he had a laugh line, you could see his eyes kind of going, I'm going to say something funny. Yeah. Almost a little out of character. But he was so damn charming. Who cared? And the show was so unique that.
Speaking of Reiser, I remember you were on My Two Dads. You play like a Casey Kasem type on MTV.
Yes, I did with Bobby Rydell and Dr. J. I'm a basketball fan, so to hang out with Dr. J for a week was a thrill for me, and I got to spend. He wasn't there the first day, but then he came in, and he was so professional, and he was everything I wanted him to be. It's, they say don't meet anybody that you kind of idolize, because you'll be let down. He lived up to it. He came in prepared. He was ready to do it. He just hung around. We went to lunch one day. I took him to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles on the corner. And I have this great picture of us with Bobby Rydell. And the stage manager on that show was the same height as Dr. J. So he took this picture of us. But the camera's at eye level with Dr. J. So he looks like he's just a normal person. Yeah. With these two munchkins standing next to him. Yeah.
It's hilarious.
That was thrilling. And I had already known. I had met. Had I met Paul yet? I'm trying to remember if we met then or met before. But anytime I would run into him after that. No, it was after that I'd run into him.
I was one of Bobby's.
He was still always a lovely guy.
I was one of Bobby's. I was one of Bobby's last interviews, and he was great. I love that man.
I just loved hanging out with him too, because that was part of my growing up. It was a little. I think he was a couple years older than me. but I just loved talking to him about what it was like, who he was still in touch with. Yeah, and that was a fun, decent show to do. I knew a couple of the writers, and Chuck Lorre was a writer on that show before he
Yes, he
went out
was.
and became Chuck Lorre. Had he already written the theme to Ninja Turtles? I don't remember.
Yes, he had, because that was in '87.
Yeah,
This was
see,
'89.
you know this stuff. That's good.
Yeah, this was like '89 or '90 when you were on. I remember when.
And Stacy Keenan was the girl on that, and then I did Step by Step. She
Step by Step.
She played one of the daughters. She was always cool. The kid actors, you talk about actors and animals. The kid actors who get hired for these shows are usually brilliant. Whether they continue acting or not is besides the point. But to be on that schedule, to have a limited amount of time you're allowed to be on the set because you're in school. The people that I've seen, Melissa Joan Hart at the time, I thought that she was so damn smart and so darn talented when she was doing Clarissa, because I did an episode of that. Or certainly Neil Patrick Harris. I did an episode of
Doogie Howser. Yeah,
Doogie Howser.
I was going to ask you about that.
Who is this amazing?
Yeah, because you play a game show host, and you used to go on game shows a lot. Like, did that have a tie-in or something?
Interestingly enough, I had a really nice relationship with Dick Clark because I did a lot of Pyramid.
Yeah.
And he would bring me in to host news shows that they were putting together. And I came really close a couple of times to becoming the host of a game show. I'm not sure how I would have felt doing that because, the template is repeating a lot of stuff. And I think I would have had a fine time because I was good doing it a few times, and then it would be like, yeah, okay, I get it. And I never thought of myself in terms of the way I looked as like a game show host, because I always had a warped sense of who I was. Except I felt like, oh no, I kind of look like, I'm not as tall and handsome, but I kind of look like Bert Convy.
Yeah.
Bert Convy. And I did a show with him, and we were both wearing kind of the same kind of sweaters that we were all wearing in those days. But I don't think there was the connection, but it certainly was in my wheelhouse. Although I wished I had done it differently. I criticize myself anytime I go back and look. I had a good time being there. I had friends that were on the show, and I got to see them. And I thought Neil Patrick Harris was a very talented kid.
Yeah.
I thought, at the time, and he still is. I thought he was pretty wonderful. There was some stupid story I was going to tell. No, doesn't matter. Too many stories. Yeah, I had a good time doing that show, and that's when, and I was spending a lot of time following people directorially, and I ended up coming back and doing that on there when a friend of mine, Charlie Haid, was directing an episode, and there were good people over there. Stephen Craig. Yeah.
I gotta tell you, when I was 7, my mom took me to see the Jetsons movie, and to this day, I still quote, "Well, Judy, we have a date on Friday night."
I actually said that.
Yeah,
said it like that.
You did say that.
And you said, it's been a while since I've seen the movie. The movie, for me, it was fun. Gordon Hunt, Helen Hunt's
father,
dad, who was a wonderful stage director and had a career directing voices for cartoons. He brought me in to do that. I didn't sing the song. That was done by
Steve
Rob Paulson.
Oh, okay.
I wish I had, because they had already done it. They had already started working on it. And Rob, who is a sweetheart and a wonderful blue-eyed blues singer. And but I had a good, but it was me alone. I never worked with any of the other people in the show. I knew Dana. Who's no longer with us, died much too young girl.
Oh, Dana Hill, yeah.
Who was one of the voices.
Dana Hill.
But other than that, Yeah, but I did buy a cell, that both Hannah and Barbara signed.
Mm-hmm.
I have one cell with me. It's dark. It's a dark cell.
Yeah.
You don't usually see too many of them because we were like in a cave, but all the other characters are in the scene with me. So it's me and the Jetsons and Judy. And there is a website that honors the show.
Yeah.
And I follow them. And not a website. Maybe it was on Facebook or maybe it was on Instagram or someplace. And I think they named they have a whole fantasy going on, and they visit Judy,
Yeah.
and Apollo Blue, and I think that they had a child, and the child's name is Paul. If I'm not mistaken, they did that. I thought that was very sweet.
Did you record
I'm amazed at how many people saw the movie.
Did you record in the same booth with Tiffany?
No, nobody.
Okay.
Nobody. She was an East Coast person.
Okay.
And I think that they hired her because somebody said, you got to have a pop star.
Okay.
So she was not the original voice of the character. But no, I never met her.
Nice.
I've never really promoted that film. I almost rarely even talk about it. It almost never comes up for some reason.
That is weird.
But yeah, a lot of the people who are now of a certain age saw it.
Yep, I certainly did.
Yeah.
I was a huge Jetsons fan growing up, a huge Jetsons fan.
Yeah, well, I was when the original show came on, absolutely. I thought that their work back then, with the Flintstones and then the Jetsons was wonderful. And I loved all of that stuff. But I'm older than you are, too. So.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how old you are, but I'm older than everybody.
I'll be 42. I'll be 42 in June.
You're a baby.
Yeah. So what do you got?
Well, good for you.
So what do you got coming up?
Well, like I said, we have 3 projects. Mm-hmm. Murphy and I are working on she wrote a play with her daughter, and it's about a reunion, a 50-year reunion of 4 women who are brought together to help promote the revival of a musical they did on Broadway 50 years ago, and they're being asked to do a tap number from the show in 3 days. And there's one younger character in it. And we did a reading of it, and the people who showed up just wanted to see the people. A woman named Brenda Braxton, who's wonderful, very funny. She was in Smokey Joe's Cafe and Jelly's Last Jam. Beautiful, wonderful, funny. And Donna McKechnie, the original Cassie from A Chorus Line, and Bebe Neuwirth and Murphy were the 4 women when we did the reading. And then we did a rewrite, and now we want to do a little workshop. Want to go in and add some of the movement, because the movement is a huge part of the show. And very excited about that. And we have a 1-person show that we've been working on for years, that as soon as in a couple of minutes, my doorbell will be ringing. And I'm rehearsing that today.
Nice.
And then I have another project I've started helping get out there. It's about a half dozen record producer, mixer engineers.
Yeah.
I think they have like 36 or 40 Grammys between them, who have worked with, going back, helped create the sounds that we listen to. Some of them actually are inventors and invented a lot of the technology. But they tell personal stories about working with people, along with talking about what they did. And worked with everybody from Chuck Berry to Prince to Keith Richards to Steely Dan, and they're still working, and they still do it. And some of them, the more recent ones, System of a Down, and the stories are hilarious, and they're really interesting people. So I have some meetings coming up with that, and I think Paul Schaefer may host the event.
Nice.
And we would love to be able to do them in New York a little bit, and then test the waters and go and visit some other communities. They're cool guys. I just love hanging out with them. As an old rock and roller, I just love being in the room with the guys, hearing them just talk.
Nice. Are you going to write a memoir?
No. No. Jay Sandrich, who was my mentor, who was a dear friend.
Oh, yeah.
an amazing man and a wonderful television director.
Yep.
People always said you should write a book, and he said, I don't want to say bad things about people, and that's the only thing people really care about: who you slept with and who wasn't fun. And he said, I have no reason that I would do that. I mean, he was that way as a director. He wouldn't direct a script if it was too mean-spirited in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Or that was like, oh, no, that's a little, I don't like that.
He directed one of my favorite romantic comedies, Seems Like Old Times.
Seems Like Old Times, yeah.
Yeah.
And he stayed friends with Neil Simon.
Yeah.
Right up until the end. Thanks. And yeah, a good man. A good man. I miss him.
Awesome.
I miss Jay. He really was one of a kind and just a dear friend.
Awesome. Well, last question, Paul. Where do you keep your Tony?
I keep my Tony about 10 feet from the front door here of the apartment that I have in New York. Nice. I mean, it's just right here on a shelf. It's out where people can see it. I just, it's a nice thing to have. They have different size Tonys. Mine is the smallest. They started making them bigger. I think they wanted them to look better on camera or something. And so Murphy, we didn't get Murphy's Tony right away because they, I can only get one at first. And then you have to spend a fortune to buy them. And so we didn't get hers right away. And when we went to get it, it was like, they're making them better now. The quality is better. The inscription, everything is better, and it's taller. And I went, your Tony is bigger than mine. Your Tony shines better than mine.
Are they sharp?
So I've got the little Tony. I've got the big Tony, and I got the little Tony.
Are they sharp? Because I know some awards are sharp, like Grammys or something.
Are there any sharp edges on it?
No. Yeah, like cut you.
No, but the round disc spins.
Oh yeah.
The Tony has a round disc on the top of it. It spins. So nice. There you go. That's the exciting part. But that was a beautiful night. The fact that we won a Tony for Jay Johnson from Soap.
Oh yeah.
That we created a show about what is art, what is mentorship, and what is the history of the art. And because he was a ventriloquist, no other ventriloquist ever won a Tony.
Yeah. And
it was because it was more than him just sitting on a stool with a bunch of characters. It's very proud of that show, and we're going to bring him back to New York to do maybe even just one night, 20th anniversary. He still performs it. We just did it in Sedona. He did it down in Palm Springs. He goes down there every year or two to the same theater and just sells it out a little theater. But it'll be the 20th anniversary at Broadway, in another year.
Nice.
Wow.
Paul, thanks so much for coming on today. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Hey, thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, this has been a tremendous honor. And I think you should consider writing a memoir because you got such great stories. But otherwise, keep on doing what you love doing and have fun. And, maybe I'll see you at a show someday.
I hope so. And I look forward to it. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. Paul Kreppel, ain't he a cool dude? Oh my God, great storyteller, intense. I loved him. He was fantastic. What a talented guy. Go see him if one of his shows is performing in your area. He was absolutely just, oh my God, I could listen to that guy all day. In fact, I did. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes. It's living.